It is a wonderful pleasure to welcome Eric Bolton. He is a musician from Ontario. How are you today, Eric? Thank you for joining the show.
Oh, hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing well, thanks. It's a awesome thing to be doing here on a Saturday afternoon. So thanks for inviting me along.
Yeah, it although it is Friday, so
Friday afternoon. My goodness, mixing up days completely.
yeah. So, tell me about your dog there, your animal companion. Yeah.
Yeah, so we might see them a few times, and hopefully we don't hear them too much.
Mhm.
But there's five actually
Oh
here.
wow,
There's
really?
three dogs and two cats.
Hmm.
Yeah, lots of animals in this home.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, aside from the animals, do you live by yourself, or do you live with others?
I'm actually married, so
Oh.
my husband and I live here together, and with our many animals, and it's just
Mhm.
us. Yeah,
Oh, that's a wonderful household to be in.
yeah. Thanks. It's yeah, lots of hair though, lots of hair.
So, what does he do, your husband?
He's actually a wedding officiant, so he marries people and runs wedding ceremonies and is getting a bit into wedding planning as well, which is kind of fun because I perform weddings a fair
Oh,
bit too. So sometimes we get to work together where I play the music while he marries the people.
oh, nice. Yeah. So, what's it
That's
like
fun.
performing at weddings?
It's usually pretty great because everyone's in a good mood. There's everyone's there having a good time, excited to be there. So it's usually pretty positive. Um, and I love like well, I mean, I have a ton of my own music, but I love playing covers and I love stepping into someone else's song and playing a wedding. You're stepping into someone else's day, and all of the songs that they've chosen for their wedding means something to them. So it's kind of cool to sort of reinvent those songs with my own spin on it, but in a way that's going to still capture what the spirit of the couple is. So it's pretty cool. I like doing it.
So, the list of songs are pre-selected, right? So you don't have any real choice in the matter, I suppose.
Somewhat. If I'm playing like throughout the party and the reception, then I usually just kind of play what I feel like playing. Um, for the ceremonies, though, usually they pick some special songs for them that are important to them, and then I just reinvent those. But generally, generally, it's songs that I like and I'm into. Every once in a while, though, there's songs that's like, oh man, I would never choose to perform this, but here we are.
So, what are some of the
Yeah.
songs that you are most requested?
There's a lot of famous, like really, really, really well-known wedding songs that come up a fair bit. Um, lots of Ed Sheeran, lots of Ed
Yeah.
Sheeran. Uh, Ray LaMontagne, "You Are the Best Thing," that comes up a lot. Obviously, you get "Marry Me" by Train, um, or Bruno Mars, that I think I want to marry you. I can't think of. Yeah, is it just called "Marry You"? I can't remember now. Lots of the classics like Elvis, "Can't Help Falling in Love," and uh, sometimes like "La Vie en Rose" or um, "You Are So Beautiful." Some of those classics, but it's fun. And my favorite though is when couples ask for songs that are not conventional wedding songs. Like I had a couple ask if I could do a wedding all Guns N' Roses,
Hmm.
and they only wanted Guns N' Roses tunes, but it still needed to fit that acoustic wedding vibe. So it then became my job to take these classic rock tunes and convert them to being these like slow, laid back wedding songs, and it was really fun. And I still regularly cover "Sweet Child of Mine" the way I did for that wedding, and I love doing it. So those are my favorite weddings to play is when they have something that's just a bit of a creative challenge.
Hmm. Yeah, although Patience is a good acoustic song and you don't really have to like modify it too much.
Don't have to do too much there. And they did have that one. That was the one that they had, I think, for their wedding, the signing, because
Oh.
you hear more of the words. They really wanted November Rain, but November Rain's a very sad song. And so we did it with November Rain, just music only. Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and it's too long too. Like it's like 9 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long song. It's a great song, but it's a long song. So we just did like more like notable melody parts and just brought those out. I'm pretty if I think that's what the bride walked into was November Rain.
Hmm, I see.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I remember when that John Legend song "All of Me" it's a popular wedding
Yeah.
song. I wonder if that has come up.
Oh, so many times. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've done that one 1,001 times, but it's a great one. Um Christina Perry,
Yeah.
Thousand Years, like those, that's also one that comes up a lot. But yeah, there's some of those songs like All of Me are just kind of the tried and true
Hmm.
wedding songs that everyone knows. So there's a there's a lot of that, which is cool.
Yeah. So I'm from Vietnam, and in Vietnam we have a lot of English language songs that are not that well known in the Western world, but we know a lot. And one of them is very popular in weddings.
Cool.
It's This is one called "I Do." It's by this boy band 911 or 911, however you
Okay.
choose to call them. Um, and I cannot remember the melody right now, but I'll send it to you later. But that is like an instantly recognizable song during a Vietnamese wedding. In fact, a few
Oh,
weeks ago, I went to my cousin's wedding, who lives here in Budapest. Well, they didn't like they didn't host like a really fancy wedding. It's just like it's the bride and the groom, the bride being my cousin um, at one of those like official hall where there's an officiant, and they didn't have a wedding band, but they played that song during the marriage ceremony. And yeah, if you've happened to have searched that on the internet as we were speaking, you should give that a listen.
yeah. Yeah, I just pulled it up. I don't know it off the top of my head, but maybe I've heard it and just don't know. So I'm excited. I'll check it out after we chat here. I'll see. Maybe I'll hear it and be like, oh, this song. But I don't think I've heard it though.
Maybe one day you'll get a request from somebody
Yeah,
that song.
maybe
Maybe
I should
somebody,
start telling people to check it out.
yeah, maybe somebody who's Vietnamese.
That's so cool. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So speaking of, what was the musical set list when you and the lucky man that you married was? What was the set list?
Oh, you're too nice. Well, thanks. We actually had um, a band that I really love. Uh, well, actually, I should say first, we actually eloped. So we actually got
Oh.
married on the east coast of Canada with just four people witnessing it, and uh, had a really nice time. And the song that we kind of used was Brandy Carlisle song "You and Me on the Rock." That song just has had meant a lot. I first heard that song the day after our first date, and it was kind of like perfect timing. So yeah, so that song we used in like sort of our wedding video of just us. And but then when we came home, we threw a party with a bunch of friends and had a lot of fun, but we didn't do a full on ceremony. Um, we just had the party with friends because we'd already done the ceremony ourselves. And uh, we had a band that I really love from Guelph, Ontario. They play bars and things like that, and just a band that I'm a big fan of. They're so talented, so they came and performed for the party for a few hours, and it was a lot of '90s rock, a lot of early 2000s stuff, a lot of '80s like power jams. It was very fun.
Hmm. Oh, I'm glad to hear it. So, do you and
Yeah.
your husband share your music taste?
Most of the time, yeah, we do have some differences. Like I really love the rock world, and he does too. But he also will listen to more of like the mainstream pop radio play stuff than I usually do. So he'll often get more into um, the pop world than I will, but it's a mix. He's still, we both have a very broad music taste, so we overlap constantly. So it's really nice. We can generally put on us music in the house while we're having dinner or something, and both of us will just enjoy it. It's great. Every once in a while, there's stuff that will come up where he'll be like, "This has got to be my playlist," and then I'll have stuff that will be clearly, his playlist, and it's funny. So because there's some tastes that we do differ, but we generally get along.
Yeah. So aside from the Brandy Carlisle song, what are some other examples of overlaps between you and his preferences?
So we actually made a playlist, which I have a new phone, so I don't even know now if I have the playlist available here. But no, I don't. But yeah, there's a playlist. Um, I love to cook and I love making fresh pasta. So we called it Pasta and Dancing for just
Nice.
like home cooking and having like a nice evening in, and put on this playlist. There's a whole bunch of songs on there that we share that have at some point sort of played a role in our relationship and just been fun. So we just kind of add songs to the playlist as they come up. Um, but lots of fun. There's just some songs by the band Dawes. There's a couple of Dawes songs on there that have meant a lot to us. Um, uh, yeah, tons and tons. It's a good long list.
Hmm. Yeah. So, what would be your favorite era when it comes to rock music?
I'm for sure more of I've always been most inspired by like 70s rock, but in the last few years I've realized 90s rock has actually played the bigger role, and
Mhm.
most of my actual influences in my playing is usually goes back to the 90s world. So 90s rock is probably my favorite, although 70s definitely plays a big role too. Um, but classic rock or a bit of like more of the grunge scene. Um, but then things like actually, yeah, one of a song that Brian and I both are obsessed with right now is actually the whole album is Hosier's new album.
Mhm.
um, it's incredible. It's so good, and we love every song. But there's a song he does on that album with Brandy Carlisle, and we've listened to it 1,000 times. But that album and that kind of more like very songwriter world is also a huge influence for me.
Mhm. Yeah. Isn't that the guy who made that hit song "Take Me to Church," right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it was.
He's so talented. His lyrics are great. His voice is great. He's a wicked guitarist.
Mhm.
And his new album is like start to finish incredible.
All right. Yeah, I should check that one out. Yeah, I remember when I was in middle school when that song like played on the radio like constantly. So I was never one to like the hits, and
Yeah.
I was formulating my own music taste, so I didn't pay too much attention on it. But I listened to it recently, like that song "Take Me to Church," and it was mind blowing. I really like it.
Yeah, it's really cool. He's a very deep songwriter. His music sounds great, but he has a lot of substance in his lyrics, and I appreciate that. And "Take Me to Church" had such heavy subject matter,
Mhm.
and was just very poetically written. It's a powerful song. I didn't really pay attention to it when it came out either. I heard it and I'd be like, yeah, sure. Um, then I saw the music video, and then I was a bit more like, wow, maybe this is a bigger deal than I thought. And then his latest album is the one that's I think made me really, really, really love him.
Mhm. What's the name of the
Yeah,
his latest album?
it's called Unreal on Earth,
Mhm.
and it might be my favorite album of the year. I always try to listen to a lot of new music, but that might be my favorite album of the year. Yeah.
Mhm. What would be your all-time favorite album or albums, plural?
Mm. Oh my word, that's very hard. Um, like, uh, there's a oh, that's really tough. um, anything Led Zeppelin, I'm gonna love it. It's been favorited by me. Pearl Jam 1, that album is incredible. You can't really go wrong there. Um, uh, I'm trying to. There's just pull up. I have like a few favorite, and they'll just like remind me. But they, yeah. The let's see. Oh man, just Audio Slave's self-titled album. I've listened to that album 7,000 times. It's such a great album. Audio Slave's self-titled album would be up there. Um, Glenn Hansard has a live album live in at the Sydney Opera House. I've listened to that album 1,000 times. Um, oh, so many good ones. Now Hosier's new album, Brandy Carlisle's album that she put out last year. Uh, man, there's so many. I don't know how I would ever pick a favorite.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, Audio Slave is a musical supergroup, I suppose, between the members of Rage Against the Machine and Chris Cornell, right? Yeah, they.
Yeah, yeah. And Chris Cornell to me is a huge influence. So hearing hearing Soundgarden fell on black days, that was a game changer for me. When I heard that song, um yeah, that was huge. So anything that whole world, that whole era of rock is where I probably feel the most inspired.
Hmm. Yeah. I think for me, I've never really found 90s grunge music like appealing. I mean, I've tried listening to Nirvana, and I don't. I guess it never really clicked on me. And I've listened to a bit of Pearl Jam, and I think I can figure out like three words that Eddie Vedder says.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't touched Soundgarden yet, so I'll have to do that. But yeah, what appeals to you about like that sound?
Um so something about guys like Eddie Vedder. I really, really, really appreciate Eddie Vedder as a storyteller. I think he has this wicked way of being a activist for the underdog or people who are, um, have been like kind of brushed over by the system. He's got a great way of speaking and advocating for groups of people who maybe or individuals who have been mistreated, and he has this way of doing that in this powerful, driven rock way that just makes it a lot of anthems just come out of it, but they're usually backed by something with some good solid substance about what really is going on. And there was something about um I find a lot of 70s, 80s, 90s that was really about being great musicians.
Mhm.
And there's definitely a lot of songs that are wonderful, but maybe not necessarily by like people who really master their instruments. And there's people, so when I hear guys like Chris Cornell, like the voice on that guy, that he has such a good voice and he's put so much time and effort into having an amazing voice. And I really respect that. And I find I don't often get that same sense of mastery from a lot of music now. I definitely still do get it. Like when I listen to like Soul Stack or Mateus Asado and a ton of guys in the funk world, that are current now or the neo soul world, I'm like, yeah, you guys are masters of your craft. You're amazing. But I find a lot of the mainstream music, it's not really about being necessarily the best you can be. It's more, this is a catchy song. And that's fine. It's all good. But I find I get really drawn to the music that I also get a sense of prowess and professionalism from the players.
Mhm. Yeah, I've heard a lot about how Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam refused to sell their concert tickets via the the ultra middleman Ticketmaster or Live Nation. I guess I'm outside of the music world, so I guess since you're in the know, so what's the deal with Ticketmaster and Live Nation?
Oh, it's just it's there's a whole bunch of issues there, but they yeah, there's so much upcharging of ticket sales.
Mhm.
But all these companies that run the tickets and everything are making so much money off everything and making music less accessible by how much tickets are being upcharged. But then on top of that, there's like almost a monopoly on who gets to sell the tickets, and then there's all these issues with people reselling tickets for more, and it's created quite the um, market of just music being so expensive, concerts being so expensive. And it's pretty mind-boggling now for if you want to see a really famous artist, you're probably spending, a few $100s to see them, and it's just really, really not, I don't know. It's not a good direction we've gone in as far as making live music accessible and part of the enjoyment of the songs. So it's too bad. It's really too bad. So I love when like you mentioned Nirvana. Like Nirvana used to be big advocates as well for keeping their ticket costs, at a rate where the average person working even a part-time job could probably just snag a ticket and go enjoy the music.
Yeah, as
And
far as
Nirvana would still make a killing. Everyone still makes a bunch of money. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, as far as I know, Live Nation is the reselling website and Ticketmaster is the, I guess, the seller. But I think maybe a few years ago or something, Ticketmaster bought Live Nation. So the same company, the same brand that sells the ticket is also in charge of reselling the ticket, which is a conflict of interest, to put it mildly.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's pretty gross, and it always is disappointing whenever like I want to see a show um and you got to go through Ticketmaster, got to get the things, and I don't know, just I immediately feel like it's a ripoff. Like, and you don't want to feel that way when you're buying a ticket to see art that you love. Like it's not a great feeling when you're like, maybe I won't go because it's a ripoff, or we're just supporting Ticketmaster, or we're just supporting these things. But it's too bad. So I love when artists kind of call the shots on it. I know Zach Bryan was also he's a newer Americana country guy, and I know he's been trying to make it where even though he's doing stadiums and selling out huge audiences, he's trying to keep ticket prices at a level where it's like come to the show, enjoy the show, and not spend hundreds of dollars to be there. I think it's important. I think our society just keeps pushing. There's a cat here now. There's Our society keeps pushing everything to cost more and more and more and more, and it's not feasible, and it's not really about the art anymore. So it's really too bad.
Hmm. Yeah. I hear that there's this guy from the country music world who's recently risen to popularity, Oliver Anthony, with that song "Rich Man North of Richmond" song in the United States, and
Yeah,
I remember that he decided to pull out from one of his concerts. because he said that they charged the tickets too high. And so I wonder,
Yeah.
as artists, do you get a say in how much people pay to see you?
You can for sure. Like generally you do, generally, but it depends on certain things, like maybe the venue is going to charge you so much and so you have to sell it things for a certain amount to, and then marketing costs, or maybe there's agents involved and they all want to get paid and they want to get paid a certain amount. So there's a lot of other costs that come into putting on a show that might force the price to go up more. But for sure, there's a lot of artists that can say, "Hey, we're not doing that." And if a venue or something doesn't honor that and isn't willing to work with them on that, then they just won't play that venue. I know Jack Johnson's also very good about it, and um, and so you do get, there's a little bit that like an artist can for sure kind of be the main voice towards that, but it's hard because there's a lot of people you're going up against to fight for your ticket price.
Mhm. So I'm not sure how close you are to Toronto, but I'm sure that the music scene of Ontario must be quite busy and quite competitive in that I'm sure there are already established names who are touring in there, and you have to compete with that as well as all the other up and coming independent musicians. So yeah, tell me, what's it like?
It's interesting. So Toronto's a huge city, um, but its music scene has changed a lot. It used to have a lot in the rock world. Now it's a lot of the hip hop world,
Hmm.
and there's definitely your rock clubs, and there's definitely like smaller venues for songwriters to showcase their work. But the options are actually pretty slim. I find there's not many venues in Toronto that I find are, until you reach a certain level, there's not many places that I necessarily gravitate to. Um, uh, when you get to a point where maybe you're doing 2,000 people to a show, then that's different. There's a lot of great rooms for that, but for the regular um, up and coming artist, or more like working class artist, it's the options are actually much slimmer, I find. Whereas Montreal and Vancouver, I find better for their music scene, and Halifax, like the East Coast, fantastic
Hmm.
for the rock world. Yeah, so I find Toronto actually not the best city to be in if you're looking for rock, and I even it's funny. My music has done better in the UK and parts of Europe than it
Wow.
has in Canada. And even though my main following when I do shows is here in Canada because I'm here, and I have a really great support group here. There's a good fan base here, but I I very much get the sense that my music and my style of music is better received in other parts of the world. Canada's music scene I find limited.
Mhm. I see. So
Yeah.
have you been to the UK and parts of Europe before?
I've traveled a bit as around parts of Europe, not as much as I'd like. I've never been to the UK, but I did have a PR company that was working with me for a few years, uh, and we only stopped working together because I took a after putting out my last album, I knew I was going to take a bit before my next release, and so we just haven't done anything. But they were great to work with, and but they're based in the UK, and they were pushing to Canada, the US, the UK, and parts of Europe, and yeah, and we saw the best traction in the UK.
Hmm. Nice.
Yeah,
I hope you get to visit.
I'd love to. Yeah, I keep saying I should line something up. So probably in the next time I do a release or another album, I'll probably try to deliberately plan um, to do a leg of a tour over there.
Yeah, and I'm currently based in Budapest, Hungary. So if
Yeah.
if you are visiting, let me know either for just for touring or for traveling.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, absolutely will do. I I would love to go to Budapest.
Hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about your album, which is titled Here Between. Is released. It was released last year, and it's fantastic. I really like it. Now tell me about the
Thank you.
recording of that one.
Oh, that album was a big one. Um, it's just over an hour long. It was a big album to write and record. Um, that album has songs that had been important to me for a long time, and I just never had released them or done anything with. And then it also has songs that um, were brand new. I only wrote them while recording them. They were so it was really a big album. That was a long time coming. So in the past, I've released music as the front man of a rock group called Shy Harry. So this was my first full album, just Eric Bolton, and I brought on a great group of musicians to join me in studio and record the album. And we did it all live off the floor, so it was really fun, just catching this real authentic energy of the group of musicians in the room, myself included, and just how we would feel, and we would just go with whatever take was the best take, and that was what you'd have on the album. Um, there was a bit of cutting, like, hey, we really rocked the end of this song. Let's use that ending, that kind of thing. You know, there was a bit of that, but for the most part, we just went off. This was our best take of the song. Let's do that, and that was a really cool experience, and just seeing the caliber of musicians that were in that room, and the magic that was sort of caught and created. So we did that all together, and then I went and separately in two other studios recorded all the piano and the vocals and acoustic guitar, just as its own separate things that we couldn't really feasibly do very well in the same room at the time.
Hmm. Yeah. So I've known many musicians from Canada and some in Ontario too. I was actually introduced to you by Jessie Tremere or Jessie T. I'm sure you know her.
Yeah, I
And
love Jessie, and she's actually on the album.
oh, nice. Yeah. Which track?
This is a song called "Why." I think it's track 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
song
there we
called
go.
"Why."
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, she's a she sang on that song, and she's actually sung on one other song with me in the past, so it was really cool. She's such a talented artist, and I love working with her.
Oh yeah, yeah. She's wonderful. I had her on my show, and that's how I came to know you.
I'm grateful for her passing my name along.
Um, so so what I was getting at is that so many of the Canadian indie musicians that I know, they would just release like one single at a time, and sometimes they would release an EP or something like that. But for you, you've
Right.
basically created the White Whale, which is your hour-long album. So it's quite the big risk. So what made you decide to take such a big risk, and do you think it paid off for you?
Um, I definitely see the value in putting out singles and EPs and stuff that just keeps pumping out content and giving fans new things to focus on. Um, for me, I think it was really important to do this album as I did. Um, I think it was a really, for me, I was in a time of a lot of personal growth. And I think as an artist and as a human, it was the process of creating this whole album and putting it out as one body of work was a really great catalog for a chapter of my life. And for sure it could have been done as singles, and we did do a couple of the songs from the album as lead ups before, like we released them a bit before the album dropped, which was good. It was a good way to start building buzz and start building some press around the album. But for me, it was a project of creativity and sort of a personal journey. And I think the business side of music, I care about, but was more invested in the creative project than I was about if there's a, you know, I think doing singles and not collecting them as one body of work would have been a disservice to the work. And I'm really glad I did what we did. For the next project, though, yeah, I probably will do more like, hey, here's a song that there's a song called Everclear that I've been performing that I haven't recorded. And I would love to record that as a single and release it because I can't stop performing it. I love performing it. So I could see that being a song that sure is fine on its own as a standalone song. But I think for this album, it needed to be as it is.
Mhm. So you also did a
Yeah.
live version of your album, and I'm guessing it's is it from various shows that you've done, or is it like just from one performance of the entire album?
Yeah, so I have two live albums. One is just me on my guitar to give a version of the album that's just acoustic. Because there's a lot of shows that's just me and my guitar, so I wanted to sort of show that.
Mhm.
Um, so I did that as one show at a local venue called the Cambridge Mill. Um, I did it as a show there, so that was one show for that album. I just in late August put out an album uh, that was the live album with the whole band. That was all one show. That was the show, the album release show. So when I put out the album last year, we had a local theater, got a few hundred people out. It sold out really fast. It was great to see. And just had this great band of like 9 musicians on stage, and we brought the album to life and recorded that night. So yeah, that's one show, one wicked time.
Nice. Yeah. And tell me about the series of EPs called Rooms that you're doing.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Rooms. I haven't talked much about Rooms. I decided in the because I own a music studio, so because I own a studio, it's a lot easier to go record and use the space.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm really grateful for a good friend who's produced almost everything I've ever done, who works out of that studio as well. So we will during the COVID lockdowns and everything. I would just go to the studio on my own and continue recording music and meet my one friend, and just the two of us would just lay down these EPs of cover music, and we did them as cover. We did cover songs because it was a way of just taking the time to catalog songs I've really loved to perform over the years, and songs that I wasn't able to perform then because we were in lockdowns. So I chose some cover songs that I really, really admire and enjoy playing, and just decided to release them and sort of give people music that they were used to hearing me play, but now a recorded version. And I did multi-instrument. I played all the instruments on everything except for the drums. On one of them was a friend of mine. Actually, the drummer in my other band, Shy Harry. But we did four rooms EPs, and each one was based around a season. So one was a winter EP, one was a spring EP, summer EP, fall EP, and each one sort of had a vibe. The songs I chose were to sort of match that time of year and the feelings that you sometimes feel and the energy you have. And we released them all within a year's span. So every season there was a new EP of cover music that I would put out. And then after doing that, we decided to switch gears and start recording the album.
Mhm. So, what songs match what season?
So things like in the winter one, which was the first one we put out, I did a Gordon Lightfoot song, a Canadian songwriter, song for a winter's night, and it's just a beautiful song, but it is about a winter night. And I did like Fleetwood Mac's Landslide, and a Billy Joel song called "And So It Goes," and a Glenn Hansard song called "All the Way Down." And it just songs that to me had this sort of mysterious or more subdued, quieter vibe. The way with winter, just maybe take some quieter times. And then in the spring one, I did songs that were all about growth and coming alive, like Rise by Eddie Vedder or Age of Worry by John Mayer. And then in the summer one, I brought in drums. Summer one was the only one where we really brought in drums to give it more upbeat. And then I just did fun songs like The Joker by Steve Miller Band and um, yeah, it's some Tallest Man on Earth. And the fall one was more contemplative, more about the lyrics. Um, just starting like sort of the one that's like embracing the end of something. And so yeah, one day our thought was we called those ones rooms 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. And I'm sure in the next few years I'll do another series of cover EPs and it'll be rooms 2.1, 2.2, 2. And it'll be another series of them.
Mhm. Well, I'm excited to hear about them. Yeah. So,
Oh, well, thanks.
we, as of this recording, summer is ending and fall or autumn is beginning. So, tell me about your summer.
This was the busiest summer of my life by far. Um, I always keep busy. I usually will do throughout the year. I'll usually do 4 or 5 shows a week, and in the summer, sometimes it gets to more like 7 or 8 or 9 shows a week. But this summer, it was like it would get up to like 10 or 11 or 12 shows in the week. It got really, really, really busy for performances. I'm really grateful for that. This past Tuesday, all of that really busy chapter has kind of ended, and it's going to be a little quieter for October, November, and I'm very grateful for a little bit of downtime now. Um, but am so grateful for an incredible summer with tons of performances and yeah, just great memories. It all went really well.
Glad to hear it. So, uh, what would be some of your most memorable shows that you've done this summer?
Actually, a lot of the ones really recently. Um, I had the real pleasure a couple weeks ago of opening up for Burton Cummings.
Oh, nice.
He was a member of the Guess Who, and it was really really cool to be able to open for him. And then this past weekend, I played a festival where members of the Sheepdogs were playing, and Sam Roberts was playing, and I got to open there. That was very fun. Um, and then coming up, I'm opening for one of the old guitarists for Guns N' Roses, which is going to be fun. So there's been actually it's and then actually Jesse T and I are doing a show together that's going to be more like a songwriter showcase where we do a lot of talking about our songs while we perform them. So that'll be really nice. So actually, a lot of my favorite shows of the year are all within right now, kind of.
All right. I'm glad to hear it. So, tell me about the kind of music that you would listen to during autumn.
During autumn, I definitely embrace the starting to slow down. I appreciate the sort of introspectiveness that you can get at autumn as you kind of think of the end of the year and think of everything you've done throughout the year. So I don't know. I'll listen to everything. I love music, and always have a bunch of different stuff going on. But I appreciate songs that are getting you more into the acoustic singer songwriter kind of style, where you focus in more on the lyrics of and topics of change, things like that. I'm into all of that. But honestly, yeah, there's no rules. It's if it's good music's good music, so I'll listen to whatever anytime.
Mhm. Yeah, and that brings me to my go-to musical artist of the 70s. I think for you you've mentioned Led Zeppelin, but for me it's Neil Young, and he's also a great rock star from Ontario. Yeah.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Mhm. Um, so since I have Spotify and he doesn't put music on Spotify anymore, I kind of have to search him up on YouTube. But recently, I re-listened to the entirety of Harvest Moon, which is the album that he did in the 90s, and it was as wonderful as it was when I first heard it.
That's beautiful. It's a great album. I actually, it's funny you say that. We started this conversation talking about wedding music, and Harvest Moon
Yes.
was the first dance song for a couple
Hmm.
for the last wedding I played this year.
Hmm. Yeah, it's one of the songs that hold up very well since its release, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of a perfect song.
Hmm. And he's one of the few 70s artists who has made a career for himself in the 90s too. I remember listening to his album, was it Ragged Glory? And it was basically a proto grunge album. And I think it was either
Yeah,
Eddie Vedder or Kurt Cobain himself who called him like the godfather of grunge.
I think he's got to be because he's influenced so many people, and when you listen to some of his stuff with Crazy Horse,
Hmm.
it's pretty grunge.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
my favorite of their releases has to be Rust Never Sleeps, even though there are many great candidates on that one. It's their like part acoustic, part live, part electric. Sorry, all live releases. And yeah, there's that song Powderfinger. Yeah, that's pretty proto grunge, I'd say.
yeah, it really is.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Did you hear the album that he did with Pearl Jam, Mirrorball?
yeah.
Hmm.
I forgot about that actually. Um, yeah, I haven't listened to that in a while.
Hmm. Okay, well, I should listen to it. I haven't. That's one of the albums that I haven't had a chance to listen to.
He's a he they've got such different voices.
Hmm.
Neil Young and Eddie Vedder. So yeah, it's kind of cool. Um, man, um, when did you get into Neil Young?
It was middle to high school, and I've said this many times on this podcast that my high school years were terrible, and there were a few musical artists that helped me through that particularly troubling time, and Neil Young was one of them.
That's really, really beautiful. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I would just listen to his After the Gold Rush album over and over again, and for the most part, I would gravitate towards many of his releases in the 70s and some of his releases in the 90s. And yeah, he never fails to enchant me in many ways.
That's really amazing. It's great that it could be a positive um, light for you in a not so great chapter. Um, yeah, it's really that's art and music. That's where it does its best work.
Mhm. So, not to get too deep personally, but do you have experiences where there's a particularly turbulent chapter of your life and you have like a musical work that helps you through
Yeah. Um, Pretty much every time there's been a turbulent chapter in my life, there's music that I've written that times with that.
it? Hmm.
But for me, a really, really hard one um, was all throughout this making of this album.
Really?
Not Not yeah, not when I was finally releasing the album, but I was going through a lot in the years leading up to the album release. So like the years where I was writing some of the songs that are on the album, and the years that um, even like as I was starting to record some of these songs, I was going through a lot of personal growth, and also having to learn to stand up for myself when it came to my beliefs being different from my family's beliefs or the upbringing I had. Um, as a gay man, I had to do a lot of fighting,
Yeah.
and it was not fun, not fun at all. And a lot of times where like you find yourself in heartbreaking situations or conversations, strictly because you're just trying to live your life and be yourself, and people don't like that. And so it was tough. It was hard learning to find my feet that way. And a lot of the songs on the album are really about that. And I called the album Here Between because of the idea of stuck between heaven and earth, and you're floating between the two. You're not feeling like you're where you're supposed to be, but you are also not where you want to be. And you're sort of stuck in between those two things. So that's why I called the album Here Between. But by the time I was releasing the album, I had kind of started to step into, um, by the time I was releasing the album, I had found my feet, and I had learned how to stand proud and tall, and I had figured all those things out to a certain degree. And so it was really great to then stand up on stage and perform the songs and say, yeah, this song is about this. And it was really, really hard, but we're good and we're here and we can celebrate how much growth there's been. And then there's other songs on the album that are just that they're celebrating um, self and celebrating how far you've come. So the album to me that's why I kind of, to go back to the question from before, it really needed to be what it is as a full package, because it was such a journey for me personally. So the songs on the album take you from feeling lost to very much being found, and it's cool. It's a bit of a journey that way. So I'm grateful that I could kind of have the outlet of writing the album and making music while I was navigating those harder times.
Mhm. Yeah, I understand. That's wonderful. Was was COVID-19 was it like an exacerbating force on all of those things?
It was like, I mean, it definitely, there was a lot of difficulty that came because of COVID-19, but for me, uh, I keep myself very busy. I always have, and often I keep myself too busy. And so actually, I appreciated I very much use the quieter times of COVID-19 to focus on personal growth and building my home, and recording and creating more music. And so I look back on some of those times, well, like pretty fondly, in seeing that they allowed me the space to sort of figure out my next steps.
Right. And speaking of 90s music, I wonder if you're a big REM fan.
So I'm not necessarily. I Everything I've heard by REM I like,
Mhm.
but I never like put them on. Like I never think like, oh, I'm gonna listen to REM. Like, but every time I hear an REM song, I'm like, yeah, it's a great song, and I can sing along. I know all the words. But I have been told many times that Michael Stipe from REM, that he and I have similar vocal things, which I don't hear it. I don't think that's true, but I've heard that many times from different people who review music. So clearly they're hearing it. But he's not actually. I wouldn't say he's been a big influence for me.
Mhm.
Um, but they're a great band, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was about to mention that, like the similarities between your vocals and Stipes. This morning I put on their album Monster with that famous song, What's the Frequency, Can It? And yeah, it was
Great
enthralling.
song.
Yeah. Yeah, I may not be like a big Nirvana fan, but REM is my go-to artist. And they, along with Neil Young, yeah, helped me get through high school. Yeah. Every
That's really great.
every time I listen to my favorite album of theirs is Automatic for the People, and every time I listen to it, it feels like the first time listening to it. And it's amazing.
Mm, that's really, really cool. It is a they do have so many great songs. Them and another band that's very 90s that was that I've been told many times I sound like is Live. The band Live is another one where I don't necessarily ever think to listen to them. I wouldn't say they've been a huge influence, but every time I listen to their music, I know every word. I've heard the songs 1,000 times, and I love it. So it's true. And so them and REM, I would put in a similar category of great songwriting, great music. Um, I know a lot of it, but haven't actually, I don't think, been immediately inspired by it.
Yeah, I understand. So,
It's kind of cool.
during your live performances, do you still get nervous before getting on stage?
No, I wouldn't say so. Sometimes when it's a big show, I'll it's more the excitement of it can sometimes be almost overwhelming, but I don't really get nervous. No, I love being on stage. I love performing. I really, really, really enjoy connecting with people, and so generally, I just get excited.
Glad to hear it. So, final
Yeah.
question, one that I interviewed every musician who's been on this show. What does music mean to you?
Mm. So, um, so many things, but I actually own a music school and I teach music and have a bunch of there's other teachers on the team, um, and we made our slogan "Share Music, Share Life"
Mhm.
because I truly believe that music is like the greatest connector of people, and um, I have had so many situations where I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for music. And there's so many people who I never would have met if it weren't for music. And people who I don't even know who have connected with my writing and have messaged me. Um, it's so cool. So for me, music is um, something that taps through to speak to us all individually on a deeper level. And from that, I think we get to share a lot of life and experiences and really see some of the beauty that it is to be human. And yeah, so I would say that's a big one for me. That's how I would likely answer that. But there's lots of things music means to me.
Awesome. Well, on that wonderful, wonderful note, thank you very much, Eric Bolton, Canadian rock star popular in the UK, for joining this program.
Thanks for having me.